This will be interesting. We'll have to talk to ourselves.
No, I just started the recording, so we should see people coming in.
Oh. Oh, they don't.
So I see we have one viewer, so I'm not sure who it is, but if you let me know, I'll invite you directly. 2 viewers. If you let me know who's here, I'll invite you directly. So if you're joining in, and I'm expecting that we're not going to hit capacity, so if you want to let me know that you're here, I will have you join right into the Hangout instead of just watching us.
Are you the only one who can see who's on? That we have viewers?
I can't see, I just see four viewers.
Where do you see that?
The bottom of my link, but I'm the one who's hosting it, remember, for Mobile CSP's account.
Yeah, okay. So in the chat, we'll put your
Kelly, all right, Kelly, I'm gonna invite you.
your name.
Your email, you should be able to join right into the Hangout now. If you're just joining and you would like to come into the Hangout, just let me know that you're here. Ralph, all right, Ralph, I'll send you the link. You should see the invitation. No one has answered that request yet, so may need to just send the link in an email. Greg, you should see the invitation. I did send it to you. I will do it again. Sometimes people don't have the permissions enabled to see the pop-ups when they come up. I saw Greg, I saw Kelly, I saw Ralph W.
Hello, Ralph. Hello, Ralph.
Kelly, I saw Ralph W.
Hello, Ralph. I don't really know what I'm doing.
You're here. That's good.
You sound sick.
I fell and I don't really know what I'm doing.
Oh, it's really delayed, huh? You sound sick.
Yes, Kelly, I sent it via email. There we go.
Hi, Kelly.
How's it going?
Yes, Kelly, I sent it via email.
You know, maybe what we should do is mute our videos so we get more bandwidth.
Again, anybody else who's there, just let me know that you're there, and I'll send you the link to join in directly. Once we hit 10 people, I think we get to capacity. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody would be able to view and that it would be recorded. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Ralph.
It looks like there's quite a bit of latency. If you guys mute your video and just go audio, it might work better. I'm not sure.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
How's it going?
Hello.
Hi. Well, what we should do is mute our videos so we get more bandwidth.
Good, how are you?
Pauline?
I'm here. So if you still have the link open where you should close that. Beryl, welcome. I'm going to send you the invitation. There's still room for you to join in directly, so just hold on a second. But if you're still watching and you're signed in, so Greg, Kelly, Karen, Ralph, close the one that you are watching. Melissa, I'm going to send you the invitation as well.
They're there. So we can just use one channel. Yeah. So then I can see what both names. But this is the camera there. Really.
Yeah, I know. I can turn this off.
Yep.
I can use.
We can connect from yours too.
Okay. This is muted, so we can.
Good. How are you? So save them a connection channel. It's delayed. All this
I'm here. So if you still have the link open, close that. Beryl, welcome. I'm going to send you the invitation. There's still room for you to join in directly, so just hold on. I feel like somebody's watching the recording. That's where the delay is happening. If you're inside the Hangout right now, you don't need to also watch it. You can close that tab.
I've closed mine.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody else who's still viewing that isn't in the Hangout, there's still room. Let me know you're there. Otherwise, if those two viewers who are left are one of you who are already in, close that window.
Because you and me together.
So this is yours.
Yeah, I just have to see if I close this.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Is it? Mm-hmm. We're together, so we can do words.
It's sounding a lot better now. Oh, we lost someone.
That was Karen. I'm still seeing two viewers. So again, my last call here, if you are watching and not inside the Hangout with us, let me know that you're there and I will send a request. If you're inside the Hangout, Beryl, Greg, Kelly, Ralph, Melissa, close the viewing session and actually join the Hangout with us.
Well, maybe we should get started. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I hear you. We're here.
All right. There's no reverb anymore, so I think we're good.
Great. So what I'm going to do
You're
is...
looking like Steve Jobs.
Oh, that's scary.
So if you're in the Hangout with us right now, you should be able to see the group chat. I'm going to post the link to the checklist, which is what we're going to discuss today. So thank you for your patience with getting started. This is kind of to show you how to do a Hangout on air. So the purpose of a Hangout on air is to be able to have viewers. So anyone who's not inside the Hangout like you are right now can watch, just watch and listen. And because that is a live recording broadcasting, there is always a little bit of a lag there, right? So you can do that. You know, we do that often when we're doing webinars. You join in as viewing, not in the actual Hangout. And the way that you would interact with the presenter would be through the Q&A. So this is important because during today's call, we're going to talk about a webinar we're going to have on Wednesday. So you'll be joining in and viewing that. So this would be an example of you inside of the Hangout being able to see and talk with each other. Hangout on air will let you record that. I also use Zoom, which I had told you about as an example, because Google Hangouts only lets you go up to about 10 people, right? So if you have a larger group than that and everybody's joining in individually, you may need to use Zoom or another tool for your Hangouts that you have. So thank you for being here. Obviously you're hearing Pauline. I turned off the video so it would help us out a bit. The checklist, I just wanted to briefly go over all the checklist things. Most of them you should have seen already. And then we wanted to give you an update on some things that are new and some changes that are being made so you're aware of them before you start on Monday. And then at the end, if you have individual questions that we haven't answered yet, feel free to ask us. So number one here, we changed our logo again. If you haven't noticed, we now have pink bows. I don't know if everybody has it open. The other thing I can do too is share my screen. So let's see.
Yeah, why don't you do that since you're going to walk us through the checklist?
Sure. So sharing my screen.
Oh, I saw that. The little pink.
So we have little bows now. Does anybody want to take a guess at what it means?
Is it for girls who code?
So girls, like usually good. The androids are meant to be android guys, is how they're viewed. So we tried to turn them into android girls. Not all of them, just some of them. Also there we have, I started a hashtag because we're on social media, so the hashtag Mobile CSP 2016 PD is up. So if you're taking photos or sharing experiences or have your teachers wanting to share experiences, you can use that hashtag throughout the entire 4 weeks. As far as communication, I hope and I think that everybody has already sent to their teachers information about the meeting days and times, a location, parking, any information about lodging and meals. And someone else had added, you know, what to wear for dress to the meetings, making sure they have everything they need. It's also recommended that perhaps you send a reminder to them, perhaps today, you know, or tomorrow, saying, you know, just a reminder we're meeting. Here's, you know, the last minute information again. They should be bringing their laptops with them, letting them be prepared for that. You should also have access to the full applications for your teachers, so you should take a moment to review those if you haven't, and get to know who's in your group. And for example, you would definitely want to know who has no prior CX experience, and who might have some. Those who have no prior experience might need a little extra help, for example, throughout the PD. And they might need a little bit more explanation. So just being aware of what the experience level is in the group and what schools they're from. Hopefully, if you haven't already, you'll be checking early Monday morning that the room you're presenting in has a computer that has a projector and audio, and that you have Wi-Fi access. and being able to provide the password to the teachers to use, and also testing out the companion app to find out if you can connect the companion app over the Wi-Fi connection that you have. Here at Trinity, we have the security settings. We have to use a router to get on to the companion. So,
well, Pauline, they can interrupt with questions if they want anywhere along here, right?
sure.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea to check the Wi-Fi connection before you start on Monday, because it could be a huge time sink if it doesn't work. I know, for example, some of you already have done that, so that's good.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to materials. I know you are getting a lot of different things from different places. We try to combine them as much as possible. For tablets, everybody should have one per teacher, one for each master teacher, one for each facilitator. Anybody who is being added through donorschoose.org, separate funding, their tablets were sent separately directly to them. In some cases, in other cases, if I knew about them ahead of time, I sent them to your facilitator. So in any case, they'll be coming separately. We should be just about finishing up that process. We may get some late ads coming Monday, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. We just had one today that was just added to the New Jersey cohort, so Melissa, you should be aware you have a new teacher. Also, you should have received a box from us that had T-shirts from those who had put in their request, had wristbands, laptop stickers, and the AP CSP booklets. Super important to make sure you hand those out first thing Monday morning, and you start off with an introduction about what is CSP and all the information that's in that booklet for them. They'll be using it throughout the PD. Another packet you should have received would have been counselors for computing packets. You received one yourself at orientation. Those were shipped separately thanks to NCWIT. And in a little bit we'll talk about the webinar we're going to have regarding those materials. So if you would like, you can hold off on passing those out until Wednesday afternoon when the presentation is happening. At some point, you should also be receiving CSTA posters for the teachers. They can also request those online. On Thursday or sometime in the first week, you should be talking about welcoming environments and how to set up their rooms and putting up posters around, and those will be some posters that they can put up. And I also linked there the documents from CS Teaching Tips. Many of you may know about them. I thought that was a nice resource for the teachers as well if you'd like to give that to the teachers. Any questions about materials? Any concerns? Did you not receive anything? I know CSTA posters I don't believe you received yet. No questions? Everybody's all set? Don't forget I can't see you guys because I'm sharing my screen.
Well, it looks like Diane is trying to get in. And Arta.
Both?
We just got a message. Do you see them?
I'm sending them an email.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay. Anybody else, Ralph, or that's it?
Those are the only two I saw. Yeah.
Okay. So if there are no questions about materials and everybody's good, then documentation, everybody should have signed and returned their MOUs, or we're working on getting getting things figured out, I think, with one last site, but I think those are all taken care of, which is great. We also need signed W-9 forms from each participating teacher, master teacher, and facilitator that will be receiving a stipend. So those should have been linked into the email that you sent out to them. They should bring it with them. On Monday when they're turning it in, or I gave you until June 29th to make sure that you get them to me. You want to check them to make sure they have put down the address that is their mailing address, because that's where the checks and 1099s will be sent to, and double check for signatures and SSNs. Very easy to just miss one of those and then it delays the process, so just check those for me, and then you can scan and send them to me if you're able to, or send them off in the mail to me if you would like, whatever you think would work best for you. And your policy is there and what you feel comfortable with. Those, again, should be sent to me by June 29th so we can move forward with the process of getting stipends set up. Are there any questions about the W-9 forms? No questions? All right. So the schedule, this is where we get into some new things. You should have already had the professional development overview, and I think everybody made a copy of the sample pacing guide at orientation and started making your own. You want to make sure that you have shared that with your teachers on day one of the PD, so they have an expectation of what should be completed and they know what the daily assignments are. We also want to note here that the lessons have changed. There are some changes happening to the curriculum. In the sample pacing guide, the original one that we're using here in Connecticut, I've updated the numbers and links, and so you just want to double check to make sure you have the right things. We've also linked here a Mobile CSP lesson changes. So if you have that, you should be able to open that, and I think I'm going to let Ralph talk about this here.
Oh, yeah, okay, so let me share my screen.
Sure.
So, can everybody hear me? So we've been making changes, and I'm going to just quickly go through the changes that have been made in units 1 through 3. So this is going to be happening throughout the summer. Hopefully the changes get made before we actually present the materials to our cohorts, but sometimes not. Sometimes there's not much lead time. Part of the problem is we are limited in what we can change right up until school ends, and now we're even somewhat limited now because St. Scholastica is currently teaching a graduate course using the curriculum. So we weren't able to actually move Unit 3 lessons around yet. We'll do that Sunday night. So let me just walk you through. Unit 1's pretty much same as it used to be. Pauline, remind me, I think we went through the format changes to the teach side at the orientation, right? The hovers and so forth. Well, let me just show you real quick a teaching page. Can everybody see that? Pauline, you answer for everybody, Pauline. Can you see that?
I see it.
Okay, good. So I think we covered that we added these hover pop-ups that allow you to see details of the essential knowledge, learning objectives, and so on for each lesson plan. Something new we've added in are icons all over the place to help identify specific parts of the lesson plan and lesson. And these accordion widgets that open up to provide additional details, but not so that the details can be hidden to make the presentation a little easier to follow. And there are sometimes up to 5 or so of these. In addition to assessment opportunities and background knowledge, you'll also see accordion elements for differentiation, like how to help a student who's struggling or how to give a student who's working ahead more stuff to do, things like that. So I think we went over most of these. So all of the lesson plans are being revised to follow this format. I believe we're done for the most part on units 1 through 3. But in terms of the content of the lessons themselves, here's this page is where that is outlined. So unit 1 is pretty much the same. We've added a little bit more activity in the part where they're working through mazes. In other words, we've introduced the terminology of algorithms and talked about the 3 basic control structures. One thing I learned last week when I was grading exams for the CSP pilot exams, is that the create task currently, according to the rubric, requires the students to identify an algorithm in their project that includes math, logic, selection, and iteration, all in one algorithm. Well, in one algorithm that involves 3 other algorithms. So one of the things we're working on is doing a better job of calling attention to if-else and now when we can loops and when we can procedures. So those are changes we're making, throughout the App Inventor lessons. Anyway, we introduced the word algorithms there. Going on to Unit 2, quite a few changes, and these are actually in place now on the actual course. So another thing we're introducing this year is Pogil. We're not doing the full-on Pogil integration. They are very interested, and we are very interested in working together with them. So during this coming year, we may be working with them to sort of merge efforts. I really like their stuff. Basically, Pogil stands for Process-Oriented Guided Inquiry Learning. It's essentially a fairly structured form of collaborative learning, and so it gives a more of a method, a formal method for flipping the classroom during some lessons. So we're trying to integrate this a little bit this year. Beryl has already seen these and given some feedback that she thinks Pogil works best when students have a problem to solve. I totally agree. And most of the ones we're doing it for are problems rather than just discussion questions. But we're going to try both to see how it goes this year. So this is the very first one, in this whole unit on the Internet and Cloud is up there in a very minor way just to introduce the term Internet, and Internet lessons are going to be integrated a little bit more earlier in the course, as suggested by some of the feedback we got at the focus groups. So you might want to take a look at the Pogil lesson there just to see what that entails. The algorithms is also, again, we're going to try to place more emphasis on algorithms using the terminology throughout the course, introducing the lesson, what used to be 5.02 here in Unit 2, with the change that we replace the binary conversion algorithm, because it hasn't even been covered yet, with a simple math algorithm. And this lesson also involves a Pogil activity here to develop an algorithm for a problem and write it up in pseudocode. So this also introduces pseudocode earlier. The I Have a Dreams project includes the soundboard app now. It's a 2-day project, 90 minutes. Another thing we've done is we've standardized all the lessons to either 45 or 90, or some multiple of 45. So most teachers were already doing the soundboard project as a project, so we've simply acknowledged that in the curriculum here. Binary numbers, not much has changed here other than we're going to make sure it's presented in 2 days rather than trying to cram it into one. Okay, the hardware lesson, this is a fairly big change. We think that the current introduction of hardware abstractions is way too dependent on lecture, so we've added some additional activities and Pogil activities and widgets. So for this one, we focus primarily on logic gates. If you look at the sample exam from College Board, they have several questions about logic gates on the sample exam out of 20 questions. So we're introducing, we had logically linked into this lesson, but we didn't really have a specific activity design. So now we've done that thanks to some help from Beryl and also from one of Shandon's students. We also have a couple of widgets to use in that. Jen is currently making a new, that's for Unit 3. I'm getting mixed up here. Right, so this will focus on logic gates with some Pogil activities. And then to wrap up Unit 2, we have the digital explosion. Beryl suggested in feedback that we should be introducing terms like kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte. So we may actually put a small activity here to do that. But those terms are largely introduced in the data section. So we only need to sort of introduce the terminology here, not, I don't think, spend a lot of time on it here. Okay, so Unit 3, we combined PaintPot tutorials into one day. Pauline said everyone was doing it in one day anyway. Similarly for the projects, those have been merged into one day. Representing images, the only change there is we've added an optional presentation on lossy compression, JPEG, the JPEG algorithm that is under the Are You Still Curious part, which is the optional part of the lesson. Under error detection, this is still not quite finished because we need a new video. Jen is making a video of this, but instead of explaining the trick to students, this is the card trick with the flipped card. We're going to show them the trick and then ask them to divide into Pogil teams and figure out the trick with some scaffolding questions that we provide for the activity. And we think what we need to do here is adjust the lesson plan so the teacher knows the desired outcome and can give them hints and help in case they don't come up with the trick, with figuring out the trick. So we think that's a lot better. The parity error checking is just part 2 of that. Really, these 2 days don't necessarily take 90 minutes, but they take more than 45. So, and we thought of, one thought was merging parity and error detection into one lesson. The reason we didn't do that is because we don't want to give away the answers to the Pogil activity and the error detection card trick lesson. So we're going to leave them as 2 separate lessons. In the Magic 8 Ball, the change there is I modified the mini projects. So if you have used those, you might recall that they used a clock. And the reason they used the clock was because the app, the way it was originally presented, was speaking the prediction and playing a ka-ching sound or something, and they overlapped. And that was deliberate because we wanted them to go on to the projects and fix it. But rather than using a clock, what we're introducing here is a list picker menu. And this was our way of getting another if-else algorithm problem into the mix. So you select, I want sound or I want speak, and then they need an if-else algorithm to handle that in their code. And another project is adding 3 parts, sound or speak or silent, and then you need a 3-part if-else. So more work on if-else there. Plus it introduces list picker, which is then used later on in this unit. For persisting photos, we've moved this up. We've moved the TinyDB component up to Unit 3 here. There was a lot of requests for this from students and teachers because students like to use that in their projects. So we're introducing it in as a PaintPot enhancement, where the enhancement is you take a picture and you use your own picture for the background. But the picture, of course, goes away when you quit the app. So using a TinyDB, you can save the picture and reuse it And it also requires using if else, because when you start the app, you have to see if you have a picture or not in your database. So that, I think, is an improvement there. And then the mini projects, in that case, they've already learned about lists initially in the Magic 8-Ball, but in that case, they're just using a literal list with the actual predictions. In this case, one of the projects is to use a list variable to store more than one picture that can be used for the background, and then store the whole list in the TinyDB. So we think that's a good improvement. Map Tour will move to the end of the course as part of the optional projects they can do after they take the AP exam. And then electronic documents. This is a fairly long lesson, 170 minutes. And the reason for that is this is the one where they do debates. I don't know directly from the classroom whether teachers are really spending this much time on it, but it's in there to do it. And what we're adding here, probably as a optional activity, is the steganography one that I used in my edX course, which I thought was pretty cool. Namely, steganography is discussed in this chapter. It's not really part of the AP essential knowledge, but it's sort of fun, and it teaches them the difference between ASCII, numeric instructions, and other things in bits in a nice way. So the activity is they hide their initials inside of any bitmap image that they have. So that's it. So that's what we've done so far. We're going to be working ahead on Unit 4 as soon as we get started next week, so there'll be changes coming there too. As I mentioned, Unit 3, the lessons haven't been moved around yet, but they will on Sunday night. The reason we're waiting is because Jen's graduate students are have until Sunday night to finish Unit 3. So that's it. Oh, I want to quit. Is everyone still there?
Very nice.
I'm here. Good.
Yeah, I think they really improved things, and we're certainly open to ideas for. I'll just say the College Board's rubric for the Create task is very, my opinion, biased towards text-based languages and text-based programming. So requiring your algorithm to have a loop in it and an if-else, as if every algorithm that you ever write has to have a loop, and this is sort of how they present it, seriously limits what you can do with a event-driven language. And this was pointed out to them during the grading by lots of people besides me. But nevertheless, we should make an effort to look for good exercises or features of our apps where they have to use a loop. And certainly things like where can we introduce procedures earlier, so they have to use procedures. So if you have thoughts on that, please share them and we'll try to work them in. I think it would be nice as a goal if at some point in the course, maybe by week 4 or Unit 4, all of the little mini projects they do require among them an if-else, a loop, and a procedure or function. Yeah, Mihaela, you're right. More lists would mean more loops. Except Lynn Turback is working hard to make sure you never have to use a loop with a list. Building it into App Inventor. So it's okay. I'm expecting the College Board to actually change their rubric by sometime this summer, but we'll see. We've given you the latest rubric. Okay, Pauline, your turn to wrap up.
All right, thank you, Ralph. So I'm going to share my screen and go back to the, to the checklist. coming. Here we go. All right. So yeah, you'll have to update your pacing guides that you have. Make sure that they have the right numbers in them and for the lesson, so the teachers don't get confused. And then make sure they have the right links, because there's links in there that may have changed and go to different lessons. So just check that. I've been updating the sample pacing guide that we're using in Connecticut, as quickly as I can. Changes are continuing to happen, so there may be a little bit of lag there, but I'm trying to keep it updated. So in our last category of things here, we have virtual meetings. So I mentioned earlier the Counselors for Computing packets. We're fortunate that we're going to have Jane Krause from NCWIT give a presentation to our teachers about those packets and how to use them. So that will be Wednesday, June 29th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The presentation by her will be about 45 minutes, and I'll do a Hangout on air. So the event, all you have to do is pull it up and watch it at 1:30. Tune in with your teachers, watch it with them, and you can submit questions they might have via the Q&A portion. You won't actually be joining into the Hangout like you are now. Again, you'll just be watching and viewing. So it'll be about a 45-minute presentation that she'll give to the teachers, and then she'll give you a prompt, and you'll be expected to get to discuss that prompt with your teachers for about 15 minutes immediately following. So her presentation altogether, everything will take about an hour from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern, directly as part of the PD day on Wednesday. Are there any questions about that presentation? Everybody's okay? All right. I also added in here, as you may have seen, some instructions for setting up your own virtual meetings. If you have more questions about those, we can talk about those closer to the end of next week. Those will be more so for the online weeks. So on the last day that you meet next week, you should explain to the teachers the expectations for the online weeks, which is attending the virtual meetings and making sure that they're completing the daily assignments on their portfolios. And I've just put in there some tips and pointers that we talked about at orientation. I tried to document them and what I do as best as possible, so you have a something to use as an example to go by. So I put putting a doodle poll to see what times work for people, unless you have a specific time. A specific time that you'll be meeting. We talked a little bit about the different tools at the beginning of this Hangout, preparing an agenda, sending out a reminder, and then what to do, kind of protocol, what I would do during each meeting. I didn't do it here today, but usually checking in at the beginning, saying your name and what school or organization you're with, and then giving an update about your current status and what you've been working on. And then after the meeting, sending out any notes or recording that might be there, and encouraging the dialogue to continue. So I'll be trying to add more to this as we go through, but that's just a sample of trying to document and give you the best I can the things that I do when I lead virtual meetings with the teachers I work with. So then there was the link for today. We reviewed this checklist. I think we made it through. Ralph mentioned the new College Board rubrics, so those are now in the course under the projects Create and Explore. Of course, using what the College Board, the rules they've told to me, which is making sure that it's clearly marked as a draft. In your case, you just want to make sure that the teachers know that in the end of August or so, they will receive another updated rubric that would be for use in the classroom during the 2016-2017 school year. So the rubrics that are up there now are ones that you can use for the purpose of the PD. The teachers will be doing the create tasks, the practice, and the official, and they'll be grading sample explore tasks. So having the rubrics and going over them is definitely something that should be done during the PD. There will also be...
Well, Pauline, I have to go in a few minutes, so I want to make sure we have a few minutes for Q&A.
Okay, I promise, almost done.
Okay.
Okay. There will also be, for the AP teachers only, it's important to find out what teachers in your groups are going to be teaching AP. The ones who are teaching AP will should have done the AP audit process, or they can do it during week 1, but they have access online to a practice exam. Since you are all doing hybrid, there may be teachers who aren't doing the AP, that may be non-AP, but they can still see the practice exam. There will be an email that was officially sent by the college board, and we were given permission to share it with each of you, as long as you follow and attest that you will not share or reproduce the exam, and that you can, like, for example, print it and give it to the teachers, but you'd have to take it back. They cannot leave with it. So this is only really a concern for the teachers who are non-AP teachers. We want them to be able to see the exam, but they can't leave with a copy of it, right? All of the AP teachers will go through the same process, saying that they will not reproduce it. So I'm able to forward the email along, read through it, make sure that you understand what the rules are, and if you do make a copy to give out and talk about in the PD, make sure you take it back. So we can talk about that separately when we get to that point. The last thing that I have for you is being able to track the participation of the teachers. So what I'm going to do, and I don't know if you can still see, can you see what I'm sharing now?
Yep.
Okay, so this will be 2 new tabs that I will add to your spreadsheets that you have already for your teachers. So I'm tasking the master teachers. This is for you because I know you have experience with this, with keeping track of your students for our data process. I will add 2 new tabs to your spreadsheets. One to track their portfolios and one to track the attendance. So the portfolio would be just checking over and making sure that they are completing the portfolio assignments that you have them do, the reflections for the units. They don't have to be perfect. We just want to know that they are keeping up and completing the work. And then attendance would be just marking if they were there for each of the days. If there's a day that you don't meet, just make sure that you are marking that. On online weeks, just say if they attended the Hangout for us. So this lets me know in the end who was participating and who was completing the assignments. So those will be added to your spreadsheets. Phew. Man, that was a lot. So, any questions?
Pauline, where can we find those that spreadsheet?
Say that again?
Where can we find that the spreadsheet you just talked about?
There's a
It's in our Google Drive.
that you have that has the teacher information. I'm going to add those 2 tabs to your spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So is everyone ready to go Monday? Summer's here.
Kelly and I had a question about the discussion of reflection questions, but after each unit on the pacing guide, you have discussion on reflection. Does that just refer to the online exercises, or?
So this is a good question. So I actually started the Delaware PD this week. I'm the master teacher for them, and I went down and they did Monday through Thursday. So there will be 2 types of reflections that they should be doing. One is the student reflection. If you're on the student site, at the bottom of each lesson, there's a set of questions, maybe like 1 to 4 questions, that is about the material in the lessons. They should answer those questions on their portfolios. And then on the teacher side, after you go through the lesson, there are some, on the teacher side, you should be reviewing the lesson plan with the teachers, and at the bottom of there's a reflection about discussing and reflecting on, do you think you have everything to teach this lesson? Do you think you could? Is there anything else you need? Do you feel confident? There's some questions at the end of that they should also answer on their portfolio. So for example, if they're doing 2.02, I have a dream, you should go through the lesson with them on the student side, have them answer the student reflections to make sure they get the content. Then once everybody's kind of done there and you give them a little bit of time to do that, transition over to the teacher side, talk about the lesson plan with them, talk about what objectives that lesson that they just did, what it meets, why it's important in terms of the course, and then have them do the reflection about, do they feel confident now that they could teach this lesson to their students, and is there anything that they might need, and there might be like one or two other questions there. So in the end, they should have 2 sets of reflections, sort of student reflections, teacher reflection for each lesson that they go through. And again, the master teacher, I'm tasking the master teacher to go through and make sure that those are checked and on their portfolios.
Actually, I'm looking at, this is more like an exit slip, but at the bottom of every teach page is something called professional development reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And it usually has a couple of questions to discuss with your PD cohort, meaning you just discuss these together. For example, how does this lesson help students toward the enduring understanding that programs are developed by people for different purposes and for creative expression? So they're just generally discussion questions like this, tied to the College Board's enduring understandings. Then there's an exit slip. I am confident I can teach this lesson to my students. Strongly agree with the 5-part Likert scale. And then lastly, what questions do you still have about the lesson? And that's just a text box that they can type in anything they want. And they submit those. And that's important that you have them gauge their own confidence and put down whatever questions they might have about it. We use those when we write up reports to the NSF. How many teachers feel confident? So on. So yeah, it's not too bad, and it's a good way to wrap up the lesson by talking about how to teach it and whether they feel comfortable teaching it.
Okay, so just so I understand, the question they put in the portfolio, and then the other 2 things don't go in the portfolio, they just answer that, the checkbox and then the last box in the lesson.
Yeah, they don't have to put any answers in the portfolio. They can just discuss those as a group.
So what I found, why I said that, they could answer them on the same page if they wanted, was that the Delaware teachers I was with, they wanted to take notes about what they were talking about in the discussion. So I said, they're like, where do we put those? And I said, okay, we'll just put it at the bottom of the student reflection page that you made. So in the end, they had 1 page on their portfolio for each lesson. There was some student reflection questions, content questions, and then if they had any notes that they had from the discussion about how to teach the lesson or about their confidence, they don't have to, but they can put them there. But you should be discussing those questions.
So Pauline and I are going to be here all week with our cohort, and if you have questions or problems, hopefully some of the former and none of the latter, feel free to email us or call us, and we'll try to be helpful. I was really worried about this the first year I did it, and the second year I did it, and the third year I did it, and now I'm worried about the 4th year I'm doing it, so I'm sure you're all worried about this, but it's going to be great. The teachers are going to be great, and you're going to have a good time after you get past the first 5 minutes. The teachers are really going to learn this stuff. We've never had teachers that weren't really into it once we got started, so it'll be a good experience.
Okay.
Those of you who are used to teaching undergraduates, it's going to be better than that.
So actually, I had a question from Diana that was in my email, even though she's not speaking up. I muted her when she came in. I know we can't see her, but Diana from Virginia. We on Monday morning, first thing Monday morning, your teachers will receive a pre-survey in their email from us. So you're going to tell them to check the email that they provided to us on their application. They'll receive a link. You should give them 5 to 10 minutes to complete that pre-survey before that you begin anything, right? Before you begin introductions or anything like that. As soon as they come in, tell them to start the pre-survey and make sure everybody's finished before you start doing introductions and starting the day. So we provide the pre-survey. The process will be very similar for the post-survey. The other thing we give you is a final exam, right? So if you've been reading through our materials and following that we do data collection, we have a final exam that we issue. So on the very last day of the PD, whenever that is, you guys will need to talk to me about on the fourth week. Talk to me and let me know when you plan to have them do the final exam. I'll send that out to their emails. They get about an hour to complete it, 45 minutes to an hour. And just letting you know that we issue that. It's our exam. We send it out. Carol says, are both create projects done in pairs? Yes. The difficult thing will be that the create one will be done online in pairs, so it's going to be frustrating at first for them. They have to coordinate how to be in touch, online virtually. The second one is done during week 4. They'll be in person, so it'll be a lot easier for them. But both create should be done in pairs. Any programming is pair programming.
Okay, everyone, I have to go pick someone up at the airport. So good to see you, and have fun on Monday.
Yep. If you have questions, let us know.
Have questions, let us know.
Thank you.
It's going to be awesome.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline.
Bye.
Bye.